Very good. Thank you very much for turning up. There was a lot of people at IMARC, and I had a rest this afternoon because I pretty well lost my voice after the second day. So Akora Resources is high-grade iron ore that's going to feed into the green steel future. If you look at the map of Madagascar there in the middle, there's some orange dots, which are the operating mining projects, processing plants across Madagascar. The green dots are advanced exploration projects like ourselves. I put that map together because when you say you've got a project in Madagascar, people say, no, surely not. I've got iron ore in Madagascar, impossible. Madagascar is a wonderful country, mineral rich, and as you can see from the number of projects there, covers most of the commodities. We've got some projects, Tra Marina on the east coast, they're our future projects. We've chosen to focus on Becky Soopa because, as you can see on that photograph there, on your, I think, left-hand side, the outcropping iron ore that goes across our 6-kilometre strike grades 67%. That was from an extensive rock chip program that we did in 2014. The photograph on the right is a trench. That trench is about 3 metres deep. In that trench you can see some pretty large rocks, some small rocks. That's in what we call the weathered zone, and that just needs to be crushed, put through a screening. We've got lump and fines iron ore. The nearby drill hole graded 66%. We've drilled 250 holes. We've got a pretty good idea of what's there now in our main tenements at Becky Soopa, and our strategy is shaping up very nicely. Initially, a start-up project, low capital, low operating cost, focused on that DSO, shipping lump and fines to the conventional blast furnace industry, generating good cash flow. And then following that, we can enhance the process by adding grinding circuits and magnetic separation, or conventional technology, and produce a high-grade concentrate, 68, 69% iron for the green steel future, for DRI pellets. The investment opportunity at Akora. We listed in December of 2020, so we've only been at this almost 3 years. We've got our maiden resource just under 200 million tonnes. We've only drilled 30% of the 6-kilometre strike at Becky Soopa. Within that, we've got an indicated DSO resource of 4.4 million tonnes, and that's the foundation for our soon-to-be released scoping study, the first few years of production of lump and fines iron ore. Beneath that weathered zone, where we're going to mine the DSO, is what we're calling our green steel resource. It's a high-grade magnetite resource, very coarse iron mineralisation that readily upgrades to produce a high-grade 69% concentrate. The exploration potential just at Becky Soopa alone is said to be between 500 million to 1 billion tonnes, and we've got tenements nearby there which I'll also talk to. The geological advantage, I've already explained, the weathered high-grade material at surface, the outcropping. One of the beauties of Becky Soopa, the uniqueness is that the mineralisation is so coarse that at 75 microns we can produce a concentrate grading 69% that's very clean, very low in impurities, ideal for the green steel. The direct ship ore, as I said, is our start-up opportunity to generate cash flow, and then from that build the process, use that cash flow to invest, to get more capital equipment, improve the operating costs as we go along. The green steel potential, as we see decarbonisation happening in the steel industry, and that is picking up a pace. Here in Australia, I don't think we truly appreciate how fast it's happening overseas. I was in Europe in April, and I was actually quite blown away with the understanding and the desire and the need to get into green minerals, green products. In the case of Germany, Germany wants to have an ongoing steel industry. They want to produce green steel to support their manufacturing base, so that Mercedes-Benzes will have accredited green steel in their components in their cars. So it's quite interesting where some countries are at. The geographical advantage is that Madagascar, off the coast of Africa, is close to India, is close to the Middle East. The Middle East, with its abundance of natural gas, is already producing direct reduced iron pellets, which they feed into the electric arc furnaces as part of this whole green revolution. The image there on the left is the magnetic anomaly at Becky Soopa. In 2019, we walked 400 kilometres, some very talented geologists out of Madagascar. They're young and fit, not like me. We walked that ground and you can see the quite strong anomaly over 6 kilometres on our 2 main tenements. To date, we've drilled 250 holes there, just over 8 kilometres, so very shallow drilling. And that's to find the iron mineralisation continues along and across the 6 kilometre strike, below the high-grade outcrop, to depths of 300 metres. So we only put a couple of holes at 300 metres in the north, and it's continuing beyond that 300 metres in the north. It's flatter in the south, fresh rock thicknesses of 50 to 170 metres. So quite a substantial iron formation, ideally suited for open pit operations. And this is an indicator there's a substantial ore body at Becky Soopa and more to be explored in the nearby tenements. Just quickly, you can see the iron formation there, the sort of the pinky colour in the north, dipping to the west. At surface, grades of 64.7, 64% in the weathered zone, ideal for DSO. But then as that goes down to depth, as I said, we've drilled to 300 metres, we're seeing 70 metres at 36%, which is pretty good for a magnetite project. You know, some projects have average grades of 15 and 20%. We've got a grade there of 36, all right? In the south, it's flatter. Again, you can see at surface on the east and western sides of that sort of soup bowl shape, high grades at surface, 65%, 64 on the west, 65.5 and the like. Ideal for selective mining to produce lump and fines DSO. Once that's removed, we get into the fresh rock, and we're seeing intercepts there of 79.5 metres at 41%. So pretty significant grades, readily upgradable. It's giving us the opportunity for relatively low capital and operating cost to convert that into a high-grade concentrate. As things develop, we can see this area in Madagascar becoming quite a significant iron ore district. We've done the work at Becky Soopa, 6 kilometre strike. We've gone very methodically through this. We're now applying the same practices and the same approach to Satrikala over there in the southwest. Last year, along the 10 kilometre strike there, we did some rock chip samples, 64.5%. Not as much outcropping as we see at Becky Soopa, but some very high grades at surface. And there's 30 kilometres of strike there which has not been explored, hasn't been drilled, and we're just starting to scratch the surface, so to speak. This is the 2 tenements, the 10 kilometres. The red dots are plus 65% iron rock chips, the orange 60 to 65. The photos in the middle are the countryside. That top photograph is very red, so it's very high in iron, and the average grade of the rock chips there, which can be fed straight into a blast furnace, and you get a fantastic premium, 68% iron, okay? And the ones below 64.5, which is the average of that whole 10 kilometres. Last week we started a ground magnetic survey. We've got 3 backpacks happening, about 8 or 9 local geologists from Madagascar walking the ground under our supervision of a geologist. So early next year we'll be announcing the magnetic anomaly there. If it's anything like Becky Soopa, it's going to be quite promising. And then we'll do some drill holes next year. So that's the basis, the DSO, get us in operating, low capital costs, good cash flow, and then we can build from there. So what's all this about green steel? Today, the bulk of steel making is through the blast furnace, using coal and coking coal, generates CO2 emissions. For every tonne of iron that's made, there's 2 tonnes of CO2. Iron that feeds into those, typically from 56 to 62%, sometimes less, sometimes more. But the impurities, the silica and the alumina, grading between 6 and 8, and I think in some cases probably more like 12 today. To get to net zero in 2050, we've got to change from the blast furnace to the electric arc furnace. That has to be driven from renewables, so solar and wind. A lot of steel is going to go into that, so going to be good demand for iron ore going forward. The product to feed those electric arc furnaces is what's called direct reduced iron. So the high-grade concentrate with natural gas is heated up, forms a pellet the size of a marble, gets fed into the electric arc furnace and produces iron and steel. It needs 67% as a minimum for that to work. And we're learning more, and this is from a paper by Midrex, that it has to be less than 3.5% combined silica and alumina, ideally less than 2. Okay, so the quality requirements are very different to what we see there on the left-hand side in terms of iron grade and impurity levels. Wood Mackenzie are forecasting that the demand for high-grade concentrate is going to increase fivefold between now and 2050, so some 800 million tonnes. But they can't see where the supply is coming from. And Akora doesn't even feature in these numbers, and we're not going to make a big dent in that. We're going to be a 2 or 3 million tonne per annum producer. So there's going to be a huge deficit of high-quality iron ore as this green steel transition happens. This slide is a comparison slide. I think it really sums up how I see Akora fitting in with the other developing projects, but also operating projects. Graham mentioned some of the projects that are happening in Canada. We've got Champion Iron there that's a producer. Akora can deliver better than 67%. A number of these other projects in development or in operation today can't deliver 67%. And they're grinding to 15 and 20 microns. So a lot of capital equipment, a lot of power. It's okay if you're in Canada where you've got hydro, but the rest of us are not necessarily that fortunate. So we can deliver 67%, but importantly we can get low impurity levels, less than 2%. And a number of these companies that are in development or in operation, grinding 15, 20, 40 microns, 28 microns I think the case up at Twiggy's project at Iron Bridge, are not getting the impurity levels down below 2%. So that's a unique feature of Becky Soopa because of the very coarse iron mineralogy that we have and the way it fractures and separates from the silica and alumina. An advantage, very nice. So that's about quality and our product being sought after. The graph on the right is because of our higher grades, our average grade is 35% in the fresh rock, and the first area that we're focusing on is more like 45% iron in the fresh rock. We only have to move 2 tonnes of mine feed to get a tonne of product. Some of these other projects where their average grades are less, like 15% and 20%, they're moving 6 tonnes. So simplistically, they need 6 trucks and shovels, we need 1 or 2. They need more crushing, more grinding. So more capital compared to ourselves. So what I can see going forward is an opportunity for us to be able to ride the iron ore price wave because of the lower capital, lower operating costs going forward. That's all about averages. We've done over 3,000 Davis tube tests, and those that know a little bit about magnetite, that's the test you need to do to see how much iron is recovered and what the grade is. Our cut-off grade is 15% to get our resource. Here's some material averaging 40% in some drill core. All of our drilling's been diamond. The difference in cost between diamond and RC and the accessibility in Madagascar makes diamond drilling a sensible way to go. At 75 microns, that 40% upgrades to 70% iron concentrate. The maximum you can get with magnetite is 72. Okay? The impurities at 0.5 silica, 0.7 alumina, 003 phos is ideal for steel making and meets the criteria that's needed for the green steel future. So I think we're pretty well placed in regards to quality, location and potentially timing. This is a cross-section in the southern zone. You can see the high purple on the right-hand side there, the weathered zone DSO. That'll be mined first to produce the lump and fines product. Grades early on, maybe 64%. As you get deeper, it gets lower. But then we get into this fresh rock. And that fresh rock area there's some 34 million tonnes identified by our mineral resource geologist, grading 45% iron. All right? So pretty high grades, Davis tube recovery of 58%, and that's our green steel resource. That's where we'll focus the initial green steel mining operation on as we know it today. That 34 million tonnes at 2 million tonnes per year of product is the first 10 years of operation. So that's going to be less capital to get that processing in place, less operating costs, and quite a nice little operation. I've been travelling there. The first time was 2017. Then 2019 was the second, and regularly since then, except for COVID. Every time I go, I meet with the people at the village at Tenaments, 25 kilometres away. That's the nearest village. We talk to them. I have my colleagues translate. They are very pleased that we're there. They don't have anything. They're subsistence farmers, rice and the like. They let us know what they would like. We've offered them employment. We've offered them skills. And they've enjoyed that. They're very enthusiastic. They're wanting to improve their standard of living. On a couple of occasions now, we've delivered medical supplies at their request, and that just doesn't help that village, that helps the whole region of people come there to get some help. And in August, we delivered a whole lot of school books and texters and the like for the school children and the teachers. And in December of 21, we drilled a well, 80 metres down. We hit some very fast flowing, clean water, put in the water tank, solar panels to power that. 5 or 6 taps around the village, as you can see there in the image. I came back 6 months later and I was mobbed in a nice way, a bit like a movie star. They were just so happy because all of a sudden the kids weren't sick. They didn't have swollen stomachs and diarrhea. It was quite a life-changing thing and it was quite lovely. And this is the sort of thing that not just Akora does, but many mining companies do around the world. So it was quite nice. Infrastructure is often the one they talk about. Our project from Becky Soopa to Satricala, there's no roads, there's no bridges, there's no people, so we're going to have to build 50 or 60 kilometres of road. We parked the four-wheel drive and that top photograph is looking north. We can upgrade that road to an all-weather road quite readily and people will be pleased. We turned the four-wheel drive around, headed south. It's a good quality road. It's currently used by pegmatite miners and the like. It hits the national highway. 280 or so kilometres to the port of Toliara. It's a pretty good road. It's better than the roads near where I live outside of Melbourne. You've obviously driven on those ones as well. About 20% of that 280 kilometres has got potholes and bitumen missing. It just needs maintenance. Governments haven't been doing much of that in recent years. The interesting thing is from site at Satricala, Becky Soopa, 1,000 metres, 1,100 metres elevation down to sea level. So we're going to have to do a fair bit of maintenance on the brakes, but it's going to certainly help driving the trucks. Our plan is only to use 40-tonne trucks to the port for now because labour there isn't a driver for transport. Petrol tanker drivers in Madagascar get paid $8,000 a year. So we don't have to try and get bigger and bigger trucks to try and spread the cost of labour. And we don't have to disrupt the current approach to transport in the country. So we'll start with 40-tonne trucks, test the roads, test the bridges, and then build on that. And that will have an impact going forward. As I mentioned, Madagascar is close to India. India's steel production at the moment is around 130 million tonnes and forecast to grow to 250 million tonnes by 2030. As a reference point, here in Australia we make 5 million tonnes of steel. So India's going to want a hell of a lot of lump and fines iron ore. They will incorporate some new technology, some electric arc furnaces going forward, so they want to get fines. But the interesting thing for us is we're the nearest neighbour to the Middle East, abundance of natural gas. They're already taking the highest grade iron ore from around the world to make their DRI pellets to feed their furnaces. Corporate overview. Share price has been pretty flat this year. I think we've done okay. We've had a number of keen people come in and buy shares along the way. We raised $3.5 million in May, 100% subscribed. That was a terrific effort by all involved and by our shareholders. That was fabulous, so thank you to them. Current price is around 16 cents. We've just got under 100 million shares outstanding, market cap of 16 million. Stu Crow. Ivana Chan is Rob McEwen out of McEwen Mining in Canada, a gold guy. I met him in 2019. I think he might have liked me and liked the project and threw in $1 million, so that was pretty good. I keep in touch with him. The board of directors hold a few percent. The key thing here is the top 20 shareholders own around 60% of the company. And they've been holding. They like the story, they're waiting for it to build. And I want to get some more eyes on Akora and some more shareholders. In terms of upcoming news, the scoping study is due out in 2 weeks. We've set up the scoping study so that a $20 million capital company is going to have a capital requirement that's within our reach. It's not going to be massive. It's going to be sensible. The operating costs are going to deliver cash flow, and from there we can invest and build the project. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your time. This is a quote by Larry Fink. He said the next 1,000 unicorns, those companies that have a market valuation over $1 billion, they won't be search engines anymore, they won't be media companies, they'll be businesses developing green hydrogen, which is probably why Twiggy's going there, green agriculture and green steel, and Akora with their high-grade iron ore is going to be participating in that green steel future. So thank you very much, everybody.